Peace and blessings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Sabrina, and welcome back to Soul Speak Conversations for Your Healing Journey, where so many of you have entrusted me with your questions, and I've done my best as a therapist, as a storyteller, as a peace builder to answer them. And I'm super excited that today's question will not only be answered solely by me, but also by my dear friend, my colleague, my sister on this journey of being a guide for others and also being a recipient of healing for herself, my beloved Michelle LaMasa-Dawson. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Michelle, and then we're going to ask the question and we're going to learn a little bit more about her. So, my dear friend Michelle is the director of Recall Healing USA. She is the assistant director of the Recall Healing International Institute. She's an esteemed international educator and speaker. She's delivered lectures and led trainings across the US and also in Russia, the Ukraine, and in Poland. Her dedication to advancing the field is reflected in her numerous research contributions, including a dissertation on recall healing and her role in the scientific advisory board for Recall Healing International. Dr. LaMasa-Dawson holds a whole mess of degrees, okay? She's got advanced degrees in psychology and religious studies, as well as a doctorate in mind-body medicine. In addition to certifications in sound healing, she's been certified in sound healing, neuro-emotional technique, neuro-linguistic programming, certified to the Center of Mind-Body Medicine, and completing her certification in Human Garage. Her extensive, she's going to tell you more about that in a minute. Her extensive expertise allows her to guide individuals in exploring the potential origins of their health challenges and to foster skills that help access their inner wisdom for self-care and transformative growth. In addition to her directorship roles, Dr. LaMasa-Dawson serves as an adjunct professor at the Academy for Comprehensive Integrative Medicine and collaborates with multiple colleges and universities. She also maintains a private practice outside of Atlanta, Georgia, where her passion for recall healing and commitment to supporting individuals on their health journeys guide her work. So welcome, my beloved Dr. Michelle LaMasa-Dawson. How are you, my love?
I am amazing, and thank you so much for having me, and it is such an honor to be with you.
It is. It is an honor. And I'm super excited that we get to answer this question. So, this question today comes from DS. Now, she's addressing the question to me because she
Yes.
doesn't know that you're going to be my co-respondent. So she says, Dear Dr. Sabrina, I eat pretty well and I exercise regularly. But I've been diagnosed recently by my physician with prediabetes and hypertension, and my doctors claim that I'm obese, but I don't really feel that I am. I know that you are always helping people see the emotions behind their illnesses. Can you tell me a little bit about what's happening to me? If DS were sitting with us, Dr. Michelle, what is one of the first things you would ask her or say to her?
I would ask her, how in your life do you have to fight?
Ooh.
Do you have to resist?
Mm.
And I would also ask her along that how she is so disgusted by people's behaviors, by the things going on in her life with people. That's where I would start.
Mm. And so these questions that you have for her are rooted in in the approach that you have to healing, which is called recall healing, right?
Correct.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you landed those questions based on the theory behind recall healing?
Absolutely. So in recall healing, we're using the work of German New Medicine, which is the
Mm,
science, and the way that we form in our mother's womb
mm,
is the basics. And so when we look at different organs, the different tissue layers, the way that we're formed, that gives us a starting point. And then every specific issue in the body is related to a specific emotion. So we have
mm,
heard in our life from at early 70s, I think, stress causes this, stress causes that. And yes, it's true. Stress does cause that, but it's stress specific. And in recall healing, we use the diagnosis and the emotions and the emotional conflicts comes from many different walks of life, but traditional Chinese medicine, what is the body actually used for, those particular parts. And so that kind of allows us to go and say, oh, somebody comes in and they are pre-diabetic. That gives me an understanding. Oh, pancreas. Pancreas is related to the father, the beliefs. So underneath that, the beliefs of the father, who my father is, what my father believes of me. Oftentimes,
mm,
diabetes is in the very undercurrent has a lot to do with sexuality, how people are conceived. So it's a
mm,
really big topic to discuss, actually, but that gives us the starting point when we consider for diabetes, the conflicts are resistance and repugnance in that order.
mm,
So that we're fighting, fighting, fighting. And if you think about the pancreas uses sugar, and the sugar is used to go to our large muscles to be able to fight. And when we're constantly in a fight mode, that is what our brain's like. You're constantly in a fight mode. You need some help. So we're going to use the pancreas to help you with these conflicts that you're having.
Ooh. So I heard you say that every single illness that shows up in our lives is that the symptoms have an emotion attached to it. And there's an emotion that's rooted in an experience and in our history and even in our parents' history.
Hmm.
So this is really common. I mean, we're both therapists, and it's common in our culture right now that people are showing up in our offices and they're saying, "I'm pre-diabetic," and or "I'm diabetic and my doctor wants to prescribe ABCD drug for me, and I'm sure that's going to work." So I know, and you know, and we both know that we're not telling people to disregard their doctor's advice. But what I'm hearing you say is go a little deeper than solely taking the meds. Go a little deeper and find out how your body landed at this decision. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what you're hearing. And
Mm,
I would also remind, so no, we don't interfere with what the doctor says. And we also want to help people to understand there is no magic bullet.
right.
No, and we all hear that on the commercials, the advertisements for any pharmaceuticals, there's a whole list of other side effects. So
Yes.
why not try working the conflict first before you dive in to some of these others? Not saying that it shouldn't, be a help, but it could be a last resort versus a first resort. And oftentimes,
Hmm.
when you look at those conflicts and you start to pay attention, it's also a reason for extra weight too, being in that
Hmm.
fight mode. So it
Oh, yeah.
all, the fight, the hypertension, the extra weight, it all kind of goes hand in hand. And then when you start to pay attention in those ways, understanding the emotions and those conflicts, and I also tell people it's about the stress of the daily life.
Hmm.
So we hear trauma, trauma this, trauma that. Oh, of course, we've all had trauma and big things that have happened. But in this work, we also focus on the stress of the daily life.
Mm.
Day in, day out fight, in this case, the diabetes, the fight and the disgust. When we see people behaving in ways that like we would never think of behaving
Right.
or saying things or what's going on, all of that.
Mm. So how do you help people in a world in which there's always something? How do you help people get to the root and resolve the conflict for them?
So
Or does
that
it get resolved?
so that's a really great question because we look at the solution because you do have to have some kind of solution in order to allow your body to shift because it's
Mm.
not from our prefrontal cortex.
Okay.
It would never make sense as a rational thought of why a person might get a cancer. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
make sense from a rational perspective. So we're not talking about our rational prefrontal cortex. We're talking about our amygdala, our hippocampus, our
Mm.
old brain, our reptilian brain that is doing something to help us. It gives us
Mm.
the turbo function, as I like to say. It's not a malfunction. It's actually a turbo function to help
Mm.
us with these conflicts. And so when we start to understand that, the why behind it, 80% is about awareness. But we also have to we either have to find a practical solution or a transcendent solution. A practical solution is that I don't like where I'm living, so I find a new place, or I don't
Mm.
like my job and I find a new job. But sometimes we can't do that. It's not convenient. It's not conducive, certain things. So a transcendent solution would look more like maybe I start a yoga practice or I
Mm.
start drawing or I find a way that I could be more at peace. So that is the deal. What I say is that we have to convince people, we got to convince our old brain that we don't need this manifestation.
That's beautiful. And you know what else I love about what you're saying, Michelle? Is is it eliminates the continued fight because I hear so many people when they get ill, they say, "We're gonna fight this, me and you, we're gonna fight this thing together." And
Mhm.
they say things like "F you, cancer," like you see that all the time,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I it never felt right to me to say that. It always felt like, maybe my body
Right.
is
It's
telling me
tissue.
to,
It's our tissue.
yeah. Like,
Yes.
why am I, I mean, I got this one body. Like, I'm not getting, like, this is it, right? This is the only one I'm
Yes.
getting. Why would I want to have an adversarial relationship with her?
That yes, 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 yes. I had a client. This guy,
Mm,
I love this guy, and he actually had a pancreatic cancer.
mm,
And so one of the questions we ask with pancreas, because it's the belief pancreas, father, bread, creas belief. So we
ah,
look, and one
mhm.
of the things that we have found, it's amazing. One of the researchers found that when a horse wasn't named for his father, then the horse would develop pancreatitis or pancreatic cancer where the owner of the horse had lied about their steed of where they came from, they would end up with a pancreatic cancer. So we started
Interesting.
asking the same question for people that had pancreatic issues so many times. It can help to resolve that. This guy, he hated his father so much
Mm,
because his father really had really big sexual issues and was super inappropriate and doing many things. So he said there's no godly men in his line, and he
mm.
couldn't stand being named for his father. And so we started working on these kinds of things and helping him to come to greater peace. It is his father. He learned so much. He actually learned how to be a godly man because his father wasn't. And so that was really
Mm.
beautiful. But I'll never forget that he was doing imagery and he had named his tumor Pat because we had done a dialogue with the symptom. And he said, and he was from the military. He's like, oh, I was shooting that guy down and I was killing it. Like he literally even was doing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's your body. And that
Mm.
tumor came because it was helping you to digest the disgust and the hatred that you had for your father. That was so like he never even imagined
Mm.
having that. And that actually turned the symptoms around and it actually allowed him to have his body come to greater peace. It's really amazing.
Well, what you're talking about is falling in love with ourselves again
Hmm.
and creating a whole new relationship with ourselves. And I also hear you saying that this example, you also went through this person's lineage with them
Hmm.
and looked at who suffered, who had a flaw, who did something that was really egregious. And I'm imagining that there's some forgiveness that has to happen, some resolution, some
For sure.
commitment. All of that happens.
Absolutely. And we have basic tools. I do a timeline based on a person's independence when they leave their home, including food, shelter, and clothing. So when a person has been diagnosed with something, we want to know what happened.
Mhm.
What's going on in the last 6 months to a year? And then when we build this other puzzle about the life experiences, we see, oh, what happened in the previous cycle? Oftentimes real, imaginary, symbolic, and virtual. So, if in the previous cycle there was a death, and there could be a literal death or a figurative death, like a divorce or getting fired, it's the same felt experience.
Yeah.
So it looks ambiguous, very, very ambiguous. And then as you keep going, more clarity happens, more clarity happens. And then it's like, well, how did I never see that before? So
Mm.
we use the timeline, we use a person's family tree,
Mm.
and based on their birth order number, including miscarriages, abortions, stillborns, vanishing twins, because there are really a lot of pregnancies that had a vanishing twin, and so that causes other issues. So
Yeah.
it's always like these kinds of things. And then we also use the time before the child is born, 18 months before we're born, so 9 months before conception, the conception itself, the pregnancy, the delivery, and the whole first year of life becomes what we call the project purpose. And that's probably the hardest thing to really have an understanding. But the psychological suffering of our parents becomes a biological solution within us. And
Mm.
so
Say
we
that
look
one
at,
more time, Dr. Michelle.
yes,
That
the
line.
biological the psychological suffering of the parents becomes the biological solution in the child.
Mm.
And many, many times we have zero understanding that we have this invisible loyalty, this date with destiny, that we're trying to still help mom and dad from the time before we're even born, and they resolved their problem a long time ago. But that trauma, that problem, that spinning our wheels, that's what imprints into the body and gets carried down to our children and grandchildren.
Hmm. You know, so in the case of someone like DS, who's talking about being diagnosed pre-diabetic, but also experiencing hypertension, what do you? I'm assuming that DS is a woman, but it doesn't say. This is an assumption that I'm making, but we'll just go with that assumption.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I would still ask the same question. So it's not gender specific.
okay.
So obviously, but I would say also that extra weight and diabetes are masculine fight mode. Okay, so you're still feminine, you can still be a female,
Woman.
but you're in masculine fight mode
That
where you
makes
have to
sense.
fight.
Yeah.
Whereas the feminine fight mode would be more like the opossum, that the sugar
Mm.
leaves, and then it's like a cadaver. So they're not prey. But many times with diabetes, extra weight, that is that overwhelm. And so many times they're all related. So that
Mhm.
that pre-diabetes, the food, okay, and so you can eat salads, as we both know, and gain weight. So there's five conflicts around extra weight: abandonment,
Mhm.
not liking what we see,
Mhm.
not really having an identity, having to fight, and having things that we don't really want and
Mm.
not what we really need. We call this the indigestible lack, where I need something so much, but I'm not getting it. And
Mm.
then I have all this other stuff that I don't really want. And so that can cause extra weight. And then the first thing that I would ask about hypertension is, how are you disappointed in love?
Oh
How's your
yeah.
relationship? How's your partnerhood? That's where I
Mhm.
would go with that.
Ooh, that's such a common question that shows up in my work as well. And when we distill the whole thing, and this is part of the what I tell people when they come to me for therapy is for a myriad of reasons you've experiencing a huge misunderstanding about love, and it's showing up in all the ways, all the things that bring you to seeking therapy.
Hmm.
And what I was curious about what you said real, imagined, symbolic, and virtual.
Hmm.
Could you give us an example of symbolic and virtual that would show up?
So symbolic, there is when I was in grad school for religious studies,
Mm,
I started noticing that there was a lot of people that were writing these Christian books that actually had Christian names.
mm,
So it's that symbolic crossing, that kind of thing. Whatever our brain records as symbolic. So, for instance, um, when a child is, let's say, they're horseback riding, and then they learn that their parents are getting a divorce while they're horseback riding. For the brain has now taken the horse as the symbol of divorce.
oh, I got it. That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
so that can be symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
The symbolic death. So, like when I talk about the death experience, so somebody who dies, that and that feeling that one gets. But then when you go through a divorce, there's a similar feeling.
There's a death. Yeah, there is a death.
Okay. When you break up with a friend, when
Mm-hmm.
you get fired,
Yeah.
all of those things. And then, so those, that would all be encompassing of that. And that's why we have to ask the question, like, what did my brain record? Because it's not always clear.
Yeah.
And then virtual.
Mm-hmm.
I tell this story about many years ago. I don't even remember, but probably early 2000s. There was a documentary about a guy who had gone hiking by himself and ended up getting his arm stuck in the rock,
Mm.
and he had to cut it off himself.
Ouch.
And when people went to the movies to see this experience, many people left the movie because they cried.
Mm.
They had, so for the brain, virtually whatever we see, that's why I can't really watch any kind of scary things. It really jacks with my psyche
Yeah.
like a
Right.
lot, my spirit. So that's what I mean by virtual. So it could be something that we have seen. I had a client that actually saw a movie, a documentary about diabetes, and he was 13 at the time. 6 months later, he gets diabetes.
Mm.
So there's something about that. Or
Mm-hmm.
another client told me about how her daughter, she was pregnant with her daughter. She had lied to get pregnant and didn't want to tell her husband. And then her daughter was born with a hairy nevus. And a hairy nevus is is it's oftentimes not cancerous,
Hmm.
but it's a big, dark, hairy, black
Oh, yeah, I've
tumor.
seen it. Right. Okay. I didn't
Okay.
know the
And
medical
so,
term for that.
and
Yeah.
so, and anytime there's like a change, or like in this case, this hairy nevus, it's about feeling soiled.
Hmm.
And it was on her head. And she had watched a documentary about this hairy nevus during her pregnancy. And then her daughter is born with that. But she also felt super shameful. She's a good Christian woman, but
Hmm.
she really wanted her girl. And so that she went about it to get her girl. And so that shame and feeling soiled. So I tell people, you're never going to get sick with anything unless you have the conflict.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important for people to know. You won't get sick unless you have the conflict.
That's right.
And you can work to resolve the conflict to become well.
Absolutely.
And it may even be the first time you have been well.
Right, right. And then when you ask too, because so many times, if it's the first time that you've been well, it means that somewhere along the line you got attention for being sick,
Oh,
for
yes.
not being, in that goodness, and so when you feel loved and validated, oftentimes children will feel loved and validated when they're sick. It's the only time they get that. And so it can be a secondary gain to stay sick in our life.
Oh, absolutely. And even while you were sharing that story, I was reminded of not just a client, but my own life story. And I remember witnessing a terrible act of violence by a man who loves cats. And I was a very small child. And so, well, you know this story. For almost the next 40 years of my life, I was terrified of cats. Every nightmare I ever had a cat in it. I mean, every nightmare, and it would continue. Like the nightmare would end. I didn't have them all the time, but whenever there was a big change in my life happening and I was afraid or nervous, I would have a cat dream, and the dream would end. The dream never ended completely. Like at the end, I would be like, ha, ha, racing, and I would get away, and there'd be a little kitten in the corner. Like, so it never completely ended until a cat came into my yard. Well, I had been doing my own healing work and doing my forgiveness, and a cat came into my yard, this little black cat. And I looked at her and I was like, I think I had enough of this. And now she's here. 14 years later, she's my kitty.
It's so amazing. My first kitty was a black kitty too, who came to me.
It's crazy.
That's
And that's the
amazing.
one everyone says we should fear, right? And
Yeah.
this cat was a game changer for me. I named her Baby Cat. But I was listening to you thinking about that as an example of how the symbolic, right? The symbolism. Like I associated all of one species with this one horrific act of violence. And it created so much terror inside of me. I think if I were an adult when it happened, or if it were one of my parents, it probably would have manifested as an even deeper scar. But I was witnessing it, and it wasn't a part of my day to day life. It's just what I saw. But I remember
Mhm.
being terrified.
Totally makes sense. And for a
Hmm.
little one, and so those experiences when we're little, we create a belief which often we don't talk about,
Oh,
or
no.
you're never going to talk about it. And so it's very deep. And so that's why it takes the senses, because it's in that old brain kind of aspect. So either see or hear, or like when you're driving down the road and you hear a song and you're like, oh gosh, instantly taken back, or you smell something, reminds you. All of those things, our brain uses that, records that, creates that in order to keep us safe. Is really
Oh,
the bottom
yeah.
line.
Oh, that makes perfect sense because I can tell you for 40 years, if I heard the sound of a cat or smelled the remnants of litter, my brain would say, let's get up out of here. Let's go. We got to go. And people would be like, oh, but it's just my sweet. Nope.
You're like, oh, no, 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 no.
Nope. And I smiled, but I would always leave. Like always. And so I'm just really curious. Like, we don't know everything about DS, but I heard you say that you would ask her or him, but we think it's a her with some strong masculine um, influence in her, in how her disease is manifesting. Um, you would ask her about her rage, about but you said you didn't say resentment. You said
I said resistance
resistance. Yes.
and repugnance.
Resistance and
Those are
repugnance.
the two words. And then it also, especially with diabetes, it also has to do with the authority, having a house divided. So diabetes, so dia meaning two, and betes coming from the Hebrew of the house. So
Mm.
I would also ask those questions as
You would
well.
ask when there was a split, a possible split in the house.
Or how there still is a split in the house.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And then I also heard you say you would also at some point sit with this person and do a timeline,
Hmm.
find out when they became independent from their parents, what that looked like in their life. And then you would also go back before they were born. Am I
Hmm.
right? Like you would go 9 months before they were born.
9 months before conception.
Not that's different. 9 months before conception,
The
and then
conception
the
itself,
conception itself, and then 9 months after.
pregnancy, the delivery, and the whole first year of life.
The whole first year. And all of that adds up to you understanding their project purpose and then conveying that to them.
Well, I don't do that for them. I teach the tools to help people to actually identify that for themselves.
Beautiful.
And that, I would say that particular issue takes time
Okay.
and I mean, for me personally, it literally took me about 7 years to kind of put those pieces together. And I tell the story about being named Michelle for the Beatles song
Mm-hmm.
because my mom loved the Beatles, but symbolically in that song it talks about only understanding the words I love you. And in early on in my relationships, all I wanted was my boyfriends to tell me that they loved me.
Mm.
My mom prayed that I be a girl because a girl was going to save her life. And in my work, I work with people to help them stay alive.
Mm.
And she loved the Beatles. And my first husband was George. My second husband was John. And then I live in Georgia. And my husband now, I thought, oh, cool. My husband now is Mark. And somebody told me, well, Mark Chapman killed John Lennon.
Dang.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I almost went to Chapman University for college. And so it was
Oh,
like,
Lord have mercy. So what you're saying now, Michelle, is how connected everything is.
yes, yes,
Everything is
absolutely. We
connected.
think we choose, we don't really choose.
And so our role, our job is to really be curious
Yes.
about why we're here and what has happened to us. Where are the misunderstandings? How can we clear them up?
And using our body, whatever is going on in our body, to ask, what is this about? When did it start? Why is it coming up now?
Yeah, that's the question. When did it start and why is it here now?
Mm-hmm.
So the curiosity also opens the door to the healing because
For
the
sure.
curiosity brings in hope.
Mm-hmm. And I tell people hope because people will say, oh, I hope I'm doing the right thing. Oh, I hope this will work. Oh, I hope that will work. Well, in that context, hope is not a strategy. And whatever you choose is really the perfect solution for you.
Mm,
So I would also say if a doctor is telling you to take out an organ, do some research. That's your body.
right.
Of course, if you choose to do that and that is your solution, by all means, and keep going to see what else.
Right.
Why is this here in the first place? I
Mm-hmm.
have worked many things that have resolved, and it's hard because we live in a microwave society because we want it just like that. But personally, it's taken sometimes, several years to heal little things. And
Yeah.
so it can take time, and we have to be patient and ask, what is the question I haven't asked yet?
Mm. Yeah. Well, that's a good question. And don't we leave this earth still asking questions?
I think so.
Yeah. So for this person DS, as we begin to, close out this conversation with her or him, what would so you said you would ask them these key questions, and what would be some final words that you would offer them at the end of maybe a first or second session with them, that they can continue to work on in the absence of being with you?
So, the first thing I teach people letting go exercises that are really simple. And so we say name it, claim it, so that we can dump it. But in the naming it,
Name it, claim it, dump it. Okay.
it's really to honor all the places where there have been these big issues, all
Mm.
of them, and
Mm-hmm.
give ourselves that honor, like, yeah. And so many times we're really quick to try to go to forgiveness because of all the spiritual
Mm-hmm.
teachings of world. It is go to forgiveness, and that's true. And I tell people you have to walk through the anger.
Absolutely.
You have to walk through the anger. It's not to stay stuck there, but it is to breathe into it and to allow that. And most of the time we're justified. And when we don't hear that justification from someone else, then it has a tendency to stay with us.
Yeah.
And so we want to process this. Progress, not perfection, one day at a time, beginning with ourselves, to be patient, kind, and loving with ourselves. And these particular issues with the diabetes, pre-diabetes, with the weight issue, and with hypertension, I would say, how could you get into a more feminine place? How
Mm.
do you become more receptive? If you're a woman, then how can you ask for help? Because we don't ask for help,
Right.
right?
That, yeah.
It's
Well,
like
yeah,
that's
there's
like
that. Hmm.
seriously one thing. And if you're a man, how can you also become more receptive?
Yeah.
How can you get into that nurturing? How can you allow that sweetness, that sensitivity? Because
Mm-hmm.
really, I'm missing the sweetness of life. I've
Mm-hmm.
lost my joy for living. So,
Mm.
what would feed your heart?
Mm-hmm.
And do more of that.
So those are the questions that someone like DS would go home with. Where have I lost the sweetness in life? Where is my joy? How do I
Mhm.
claim it or reclaim it?
Mhm.
And do you have any like short physical activities that you do with people that you might want to share with everyone? I remember one you taught me. I don't know if that's the one you want to share now.
Which one? The butterfly hug or
Yeah, that's what
yeah,
I'm
okay,
thinking.
sure. And so we use the principles of EFT, so the
Okay.
emotional freedom technique. And when
Mm-hmm.
you tap, so with the emotional freedom technique, you're tapping on the meridian and
Mm-hmm.
you're going through all this here, 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 and you're
Mm-hmm.
saying something, you're honoring where you've been, and you're going through it. We do a little shortcut called the butterfly hug, okay? And so we're tapping alternatively. So we're really anchoring all of this into our body. We're helping our left side of our brain speak to our right side, and we're getting agreement when we tap. And so
Mm-hmm.
we might say something. So let's take, for instance, DS. Okay. And so we might say something like, even though I feel so resistant,
So resistant.
even though I feel so much
I
disgust,
feel so much disgust.
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
I forgive myself from the bottom of my heart because I'm always doing the best I can with the resources that I have.
I'm always doing the best I can with the resources that I have.
And if you're ready and wanting to forgive those other people, you can also say, I forgive them from the bottom of my heart because they too are doing the best they can with the resources that they
Mm, yeah.
have. And I don't have to hold on to this. I don't have to be ill for this for the rest of my life. I don't have to die for this.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to live my life to the fullest and let this go.
Ah,
And a
that's
deep cleansing breath and release. You can even give yourself a little squeeze and smile. Like Mantak Chia, smile
oh
to
yes.
your
He always
organs.
says. So I choose to live my life to the fullest and let this go.
Yes.
Thank you. DS. Choose to live your life to the fullest and let this go. And everyone who is listening to this conversation about DS, choose to live your life to the fullest and let this go.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Michelle, why? Oh, well, first of all, I
So
just want to thank you for showing up because you're beautiful
thank
and you give, and you've been my teacher in addition to being my friend and co-student and fellow traveler on this
you.
journey.
So
And
grateful for you.
I know, me too.
Mhm.
And I want you to tell people what's the fastest way, the easiest way for people to reach out to you when they have challenges that are similar to DS and they want to do some deeper healing work.
So my website is soultreetransformations.com. That's the
Perfect.
fastest way. And there's also some intro workshops and some more detailed workshops on there. And it's a nice way to jump in, but you can also send me an inquiry and we'll get right back to you
On your website.
on my website.
Beautiful. And we're going to put your information at the end of this video anyway.
Yay. Excellent.
Yay. So thank you all for your question. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out with us. And we can't wait to see what you do on your healing journey with these scrumptious tidbits of information from my dear friend. Thank you, everyone. Peace and blessings.